It was a night I'll never forget. The storm hit without warning, one of those sudden, violent flashes of nature that seemed to rip the world apart. I was driving down Route 8, a dark, empty stretch of road, when the rain started coming down in sheets. My windshield wipers could barely keep up. I wasn't used to being out on these back roads at night. But my truck was old, and I'd needed the quiet for a while. I wasn't expecting anyone else to be on the road. But as I turned a sharp corner, there was a flash of bright, white light, and then I saw him. A man, stumbling, drenched, waving his arms in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, my tires screeching against the wet asphalt. The truck skidded, but I managed to pull over just in time. I rushed out, adrenaline kicking in. The rain was so heavy I could barely see, but I could hear his panicked breathing. "Hey, are you okay?" I shouted, trying to get close. His eyes were wide with terror, his clothes torn. I need help," he gasped. "I was in an accident. My truck, ... I'm stuck." Without thinking, I reached for him, pulling him out of the rain and into the warmth of my truck. The poor guy was shaking, his hands trembling as he clutched his chest, gasping for air. I couldn't let him stay out there in that kind of storm. He told me his name was Tom Bennett, and he'd been driving to a job site when he lost control of his truck in the rain. He'd gotten stuck, and with the storm raging, he couldn't get out. His phone was dead, and he had no way to reach anyone. I didn't hesitate. I drove him to the nearest town, which was miles away, and called for help. We waited in the warmth of my truck, his eyes still wide, his voice trembling. I knew he was scared, but there was something else, a kind of guilt. Maybe, or desperation. We didn't talk much that night. Just small talk, his job, his family, the weather. But before I dropped him off at a friend's house, he insisted on giving me something, just as a way to say thanks. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a check. "No. Really, it's fine," I said, trying to refuse. "I didn't help you for money." But he wouldn't take no for an answer. "Please, it's all I can do." He pressed the check into my hand. "Just in case you ever need it." The check was for $10,000. My jaw dropped. I hesitated, looking at him, wondering what kind of man would give so much to a stranger. But before I could ask, he simply turned, stepped into the rain, and disappeared into the night. I never saw Tom again. Until 10 years later. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. 10 years. I had nearly forgotten about that night. But one rainy afternoon, the letter came. It had no return address, just my name written in elegant script. Inside was a check from Tom Bennett. And the note that came with it: "Time to collect on your investment." I stared at the check in disbelief. What had happened to Tom in all these years? And why was he sending me money now? The check was in my hands, but my thoughts were elsewhere. A part of me wanted to toss it aside, pretend it was just some strange, misguided gesture. But another part of me, the part that couldn't let go of the night Tom had disappeared, knew there was something bigger at play here. I stared at the check for what felt like an eternity. Tom Bennett's name felt so distant, like a name from a forgotten story. That stormy night, the man who had been so grateful had simply disappeared. I hadn't heard from him since, and frankly, I'd never expected to. But now, 10 years later, there was this check and the note. "Time to collect on your investment." The words echoed in my mind. Investment. What did that even mean? What had I invested in that required a return? I hadn't asked for the check, hadn't expected anything. I had just helped a man stranded in a storm. I quickly opened the letter again, searching for some hidden clue. There was nothing. Just the check, made out to my name, $50,000. A lump formed in my throat. How had Tom accumulated such wealth in 10 years, and why was he sending it to me now? I sat there for a while, still unsure of what to do. Finally, I called the number on the letter. A man's voice answered almost immediately, deep and calm. "This is Tom Bennett." "Who's this, Tom?" I said, my voice shaky. "It's me. Mark Davis. You saved my life, and you disappeared. You gave me a check today. I don't understand. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, finally, Tom spoke again. Mark, you don't know everything. His voice was hushed, almost strained. I know this is going to sound crazy, but listen to me. That check is just the beginning. It's your share, my share, of what? I asked, my confusion turning to frustration. Tom's voice lowered even further. There's something I need to tell you. I don't have much time. But I'm not the man you think I am. I didn't disappear because I wanted to, I had to. And everything I've done since then, everything I've built, it's all been for you. I leaned forward, every muscle in my body tight. For me, everything I've done, every move I made since that stormy night, it's been for you. There's a reason I gave you that check. There's something you're involved in now, something bigger than anything we ever talked about. But you need to trust me, Mark. I could feel my pulse quickening. Trust you with what? Tom paused for a moment. Then his voice softened, as if he was sharing something I wasn't supposed to hear. There's a company, an investment firm, but it's more than just business. They've been running a covert operation for years, and I was part of it. I didn't have a choice. But you do. You're the key to everything. The check. It's your entry point. I need you to meet with them. It's time you knew the truth. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. I had no idea what Tom was talking about, but one thing was clear: he needed me, and whatever I was about to get involved in, it wasn't going to be easy. Before I could process everything, a knock echoed from my front door. I stood up, feeling my heart pound. There was no time to think. There was no time to breathe. I opened the door and, standing there, in a black suit, was a man I didn't recognize. I'm here for the meeting, he said, his eyes cold and calculating. Mr. Bennett sent me. My mind raced. Was I ready for whatever this was? Could I walk away? Or was this going to be the moment my life changed forever? The man standing on my doorstep was tall, his face hard and unreadable. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, his tie immaculate, and his shoes gleamed even in the dull light of the stormy afternoon. I barely had time to register his presence before he spoke again. I'm here for the meeting, he said, his voice cold but somehow reassuring. Like it had been practiced 1,000 times. I didn't invite anyone over, and certainly not someone like him. My heart was still racing from the conversation with Tom, the check, the cryptic messages, and now this man who exactly was Tom Bennett, and why had he involved me in this? I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice unsteady as I tried to maintain control. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled a small envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to me. Mr. Bennett said, "You'll know what to do with this," he said, then turned and walked away without another word. I stood there, still gripping the doorframe, staring at the envelope. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just some random person, it couldn't be. It was like I had just been thrown into the middle of a story I didn't understand. And now the plot was moving too fast for me to keep up. I opened the envelope, my hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the edges worn as if it had been handled multiple times. The note was brief, but the words burned through me. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th and Pine. Come alone. Bring the check. The words felt like a punch to the stomach. Who was I meeting? And why did I have to bring the check? My head spun. Tom's words echoed in my mind. You were the key to everything. What did that even mean? A part of me wanted to ignore it, to tell myself that it was all some elaborate hoax. But something told me that if I didn't show up, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. I grabbed the check and shoved it in my jacket pocket. I didn't have a plan, but I had to go. The rain had started again, coming down harder now, as I drove through the city toward the warehouse. The streets were empty, the air thick with anticipation. I knew this wasn't just some regular business deal, it was something else entirely. When I finally arrived, the warehouse loomed in front of me, old, abandoned, the windows covered in grime. It looked like a place where secrets were kept. I parked in front, turned off the engine, and took a deep breath. This was it. I stepped out into the rain, feeling the cold hit my skin, but I couldn't back down now. I walked toward the entrance, the old metal doors creaking as I pushed them open. Inside, the place was dark, save for a single dim light hanging from the ceiling. I couldn't see anyone. But then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It was Tom, but he wasn't the same. The man who had once been desperate, grateful, was now calm, composed, and almost dangerous. Tom, I whispered, my voice barely audible. He looked at me, his eyes hard and determined. It's time to finish what we started. Before I could say anything else, the door behind me slammed shut, and the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. I wasn't alone anymore, and I had no idea who or what was coming next. But one thing was certain: I was about to uncover the truth, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what I was about to find. The air in the warehouse was thick with dust and something else, something darker. As I stood there, staring at Tom, the man I had helped all those years ago, everything felt wrong. He had changed. His presence was colder now, sharper, like the man I had known had been replaced by someone else entirely. Tom, I repeated, my voice unsure, as the weight of the moment sank in. He took a step forward, his face almost unreadable in the dim light. You're here. That's good, he said. There was no gratitude in his tone, only a kind of icy determination. I felt my stomach tighten. What is all of this? Why the cryptic messages? The check? And why have you dragged me here? Tom's lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. He looked at me for a long moment, as if deciding how much to say. Because, Mark, he began slowly, you've always been a part of this. You just didn't know it. You see, I wasn't just some random guy in the storm. And you weren't just some random guy who helped me. He paused, watching my reaction carefully. I needed you, Mark. I needed you to do something for me, something that would change everything. I felt a chill wash over me. What do you mean? You needed me to help you get out of the storm? To drive you to safety? I was starting to get frustrated, but there was a small, gnawing feeling that told me this was about to get much worse. No, Tom replied, his voice dropping. I needed you to trust me. That night, when I gave you the check, when I told you to hold on to it, that was the beginning. The beginning of something I had to set in motion. I stared at him, my head spinning. What are you talking about? Just tell me what's going on. Tom took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving mine. I wasn't just stranded that night, Mark. I had a plan. I was part of something bigger, group with resources and influence. That check, it wasn't a thank you. It was the beginning of an agreement. One that would tie you to what I've been doing for the last decade. My heart raced as I processed his words. What did this mean? And why hadn't I known anything about it? Tom reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound folder. He tossed it toward me, and I caught it, my hands shaking. Inside that folder, he said, is everything you need to know. It's your inheritance, Mark, your real inheritance. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not. I opened the folder cautiously, my mind racing with questions. There were several documents inside, contracts, financial records, and one photograph that caught my eye immediately. It was a picture of me, from years ago, standing next to Tom, smiling, my arm around his shoulder. But this was no ordinary picture. In the background, I noticed something odd, an unfamiliar man watching us from the shadows. I looked up at Tom, my pulse quickening. Who is he? Tom's expression hardened. That's the man you're going to need to worry about. His name is Victor Hayes. He's the leader of the group I've been working for, and now, he's the one who's coming for you. I stared at the photograph in disbelief. What do you mean, coming for me? I don't know him. I've never even heard of him. Tom's gaze was intense. You don't need to know him. Not yet, but you will. Because everything that's coming next, it's tied to you, to your family, to the choices you'll have to make. The weight of his words sank in, and suddenly, everything felt so much bigger than just me and Tom. This was about power, secrets, and a dangerous game that I hadn't known I was a part of. We need to move quickly, Tom said, his voice low. Victor is already aware of the situation. And now that you have the folder, you're on their radar. There's no going back. I felt the cold sweat on the back of my neck. The air in the warehouse seemed to close in around me, and for the first time, I realized that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't control. Tom turned toward the back of the warehouse, as if he knew exactly what was coming next. "We have to go," he said. "There's no more time to waste. Victor's people are already on their way." I was about to step forward when the unmistakable sound of engines roaring outside broke the tension. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I wasn't just being dragged into a game. I was the game. Tom turned to me, his face hardening. "Brace yourself. They're here." The sound of approaching engines grew louder, and for a moment, everything around me seemed to freeze. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked at Tom. His face, usually so composed, was now taut with urgency. "They're here," he repeated, his voice low. "And it's not just Victor's men. They know everything now. You can't go back." The door to the warehouse creaked as it swung open, and shadows filled the frame. I couldn't see their faces, but I could feel the cold menace that followed them in. I could hear their boots hitting the concrete floor, slow, deliberate steps that echoed through the empty space. Tom moved quickly, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward a narrow back door hidden behind a pile of old crates. "We have to move now," he urged. I hesitated, my mind racing. This wasn't the way I expected my life to go. 10 years ago, I helped a man stranded in a storm. I never asked for anything in return, and now, here I was caught up in a conspiracy involving shadowy figures, dark money, and a dangerous group of people willing to do anything to protect their secrets. "Who are these people?" I asked as we crouched low, moving toward the door. "What do they want with me?" "They want control," Tom said, his voice barely a whisper. "And now, you're part of it. Your inheritance, your connection to everything. This is bigger than both of us. You don't have a choice anymore. They'll never leave you alone." I turned to face him, my eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, inheritance? I don't know anything about it." Tom stopped for a moment, looking at me with a mixture of guilt and resolve. "Your grandfather's legacy was tied to more than just the business. You're the heir to something dangerous, something Victor and his group have been trying to control for years. The check I gave you, everything I've done, it's all part of a plan." Before I could process the weight of his words, the door behind us slammed open. The men were here, their shadows falling across the floor like predatory animals closing in. Tom turned to me urgently. "We have to go now." We dashed through the back exit, out into the rain-soaked night. The alley was dark, the streetlights barely cutting through the mist. The air was thick, the tension nearly suffocating as we ran, the sound of footsteps chasing us. "Where are we going?" I gasped, struggling to keep up. Tom's eyes darted around as he led the way through the narrow alley. "There's a safe house, a place where we can hide until we figure this out. I know you don't understand everything, but we're running out of time." Just as we reached the end of the alley, a sleek black SUV screeched to a stop in front of us. The door opened, and a man in a black suit stepped out. He was tall, his face sharp and unreadable. "Get in," he said, his tone commanding. Tom hesitated for a split second, then nodded at me. "Do it, he's with us." I climbed into the back of the SUV, my heart racing. As soon as the door closed, the car sped off into the night, the sound of the engines blending with the storm outside. I looked at the man beside me, my mind spinning. "Who are you?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to Tom, who gave him a quick nod. "This is Adrian," Tom said, his voice low. "He's the one who can help us now." Adrian finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "You don't understand what's at stake, but you will soon enough. This has gone beyond what Tom can fix on his own. You're not just in danger anymore. They'll stop at nothing to make sure you're silenced." I felt the weight of his words settle in my chest. I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was at the center of something dark and dangerous that threatened everything I thought I knew about my life. We drove for what felt like hours. weaving through city streets, until we finally arrived at a secure, unmarked building. Adrian ushered us inside, the door slamming shut behind us with an unsettling finality. Once inside, Adrian turned to face me. "This is it. You'll be safe here for now. But there's one thing we need from you. Tom's legacy. It's tied to something larger than money. It's about power, control, and a secret that goes back decades. If we're going to stop them, you need to make a choice." My pulse quickened. What choice? Adrian stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You can walk away, leave all of this behind, and disappear. But they won't stop looking for you. Or, you can take control of your inheritance, step into your grandfather's shoes, and fight for what's yours. You'll have to face them, Victor, the others, and protect everything your family built, but it won't be easy." The silence hung between us, and I knew in that moment that everything I had thought I knew about myself was wrong. I had two choices: run or fight. But I had already lost too much to run, and for the first time in my life, I realized I was ready to fight. If you found this story captivating, make sure to like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones that define who we really are. Don't miss the next chapter of this journey.